You're listening to the Training Talk podcast with Wattsie and DK. Dive into strength basics and elite endurance secrets. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned athlete, this is the show for you. Join us each episode as we explore everything from training to wellness, nutrition, and much more. Let's get started.
Good morning, Wattsie. Welcome to the second episode of Training Talk. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad this morning, considering. Had a really good session on the bike this morning. Got my blood flowing and my endorphins up. So we pretty much got up at 4 o'clock and got into the gym pretty quickly. So, I had a good week of consistent training too. So I'm all up and about and buzzed, ready to go. How about yourself? That's
great. Yeah, well, I've been ruining my routine with the Olympics lately. So
that's only natural.
Just outsourcing my exercise to the professionals the last week. But
that's what you got to do.
Today's episode is about our why and how stories. So do you want to take us away, Wattsie?
Yeah, so our whys and our hows and what we're up to now. That rhymed. How's that? I think the reason why we do what we do is for a few reasons, and a lot of our reasons today are going to be relatively serious, but this is what drives us to the point of pretty much training every day. Now, I train without really anything on the calendar, and about 12 months ago, I got some pretty to me it was pretty devastating health news. I've got a heart condition, and when I was 17, I applied for the army, and things didn't go too well. I made it all the way through to the assessment centres, and they done a full medical on me, and they found out that I've got a valvular issue, which was congenital, and they pretty much said no. And I thought, well, they didn't actually tell me no, but I figured out why there was no, because they didn't want to have a risk of, if I'm taken as a prisoner of war, POW, my body might not be able to handle certain conditions and whatnot, sort of thing. So I kind of forgotten that all the way through, and it was only up until last year I did a pre-employment medical, and they picked it up, and all that bad news, that bad feeling came back, and I was really upset. I was quite nervous for a good period of time. I was Googling on my phone, about all of this stuff and how serious it is. But I spoke to my cardiologist 6 months after that. He said I can train pretty much as I want. And everything was all good. So I started back in the gym again. I started running, started cycling, doing all that bit. And I was feeling really good. And I feel, as I sit here now, I feel like that condition isn't affecting me whatsoever. I mean, I'm 32 years of age. He did say that I was going to need a operation within the next 10 to 15 years. But as long as I looked after myself, keep doing what I'm doing. Look, I don't smoke. I don't drink too much. I do adequate doses of cardiovascular training, and I do adequate doses of strength training to keep everything all healthy. So I guess the reason why, my biggest why, is to look after my heart health, my overall condition, my overall health, because if I don't, and this will probably lead into my next point, but if I don't, I could potentially be in a very unhealthy position by the time I have my operation. And so obviously if I'm in a great health condition, if I'm in a great health spot, it'll be less time on a recovery table, less time in ICU, less time on the bypass machines and all that sort of stuff. And I can get back to what I want to do quicker than someone else who might not be in as good as health condition as myself. But yeah, that's pretty much my number one why. But we'll get to those other points shortly after. But I just want to talk about your why. What's your biggest why?
Well, the reason I actually got into exercise as an adult was actually to stop drinking. So, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try and make it as brief as possible. But, basically I was in year 11. I had 4 Hahn ices, and I was like, this is not going to be enough to get the required buzz. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to dehydrate myself, go for a run, and I'll come back and then I'll get a bit of a buzz from these 4 beers that I have stashed in the fridge at boarding school. And so went out, did my 8K run, came back, had like a nice kind of runner's high going, and I was like, oh, man, I don't even really feel like drinking now. And then I was like, but don't want to waste all that effort, so I had the 4 beers. And
was that the one you ran on bare feet too, the 8K?
No, that wasn't barefoot. Yeah. So anyway, fast forward a couple of years, and I'd left home, finished school, left home, and I was drinking too much, and I couldn't really see how I could afford Christmas presents. So I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quit drinking for December and save up for Christmas presents for the family, so they don't think I'm the biggest loser. And so that's what I did. Quit drinking and started running in the evenings. And I kind of knew from that year 11 experience that it was kind of a good replacement therapy. So that was the second time that little strategy worked for me. And then end of December, kind of just got back into drinking, into my normal lifestyle. The running kind of faded away again. And then I wasn't doing real well. I decided that I needed to change my life around. I started going to church, I met my wife at church, and we got married, and life was going well. And then I was trying to live like between a Christian and drinking, and it just wasn't working for me. So I really felt like I needed to give up drinking. And so I was like, I'm gonna go back to my old strategy of taking up running. And so I did that 8K that I was telling you about. Headed off down the street with the dog barefoot. I got about 500 metres down, running on the grass verges around Mandurah, and trod on a big prickle bush. And I was sitting there on this guy's lawn, pulling prickles out of my foot, going, do I just walk home now and like call that the end of my running career, or do I carry on? And it was the Sydney Olympics, so it was I think that's what motivated me to get out the door. And I decided to keep going. Ran down to the beach, did my sprint session I had planned with the dog, ran home, and then established a nice little routine from there.
So it's almost like you stumbled across your elite running career by accident.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was something I just, I had to do for, to quit drinking. It wasn't like I'm going to be an amazing runner. It wasn't like, any of the reasons I run for these days, really. It was like, all right, this is going to be my replacement addiction. This is going to be how I get my endorphins instead of drinking.
That's I can actually resonate with that as well. Well, not directly, like I hadn't been down that sort of path as like you have, but my family, particularly my mother, she was quite an alcoholic, and I didn't really want to be like her when I grew up. So that kind of that message does resonate. And there was one time that actually made me remember of I ran a game of umpiring one day, and it was between me and myself and another umpire, and the umpires coordinator come down and he said, right, one of you two are going to run your league debut next week.
Yeah.
And I was hungover like anything. I was like, oh no, definitely not going to be me then. And so the next week I got to training and I read my name out in the appointment. So I was like, well, I ran my best ever game hungover. Would you believe? Yeah,
I think sometimes that when we're feeling bad about the condition we're in, like, can actually just make it drive us to higher performances just through just stubbornness. And I was at working for a school, and we did the Relay for Life, the 24-hour fundraiser for the Cancer Council, and one of the guys there, he'd run like 20K, and been having a great time.
All boozed up?
No, he hadn't been drinking, but he's just like, I got to play footy tomorrow. I've just like run 20K. How am I gonna play a game of footy? And I was like, it's gonna hurt, but you'll get through it. You just have to be determined, because like your body can always find that extra gear. It's just a matter of when your mind is switched on. And he said he had a great game, got one of the best players. So, and he'd run 20K the day before. Normally he'd rest the day before. I mean, it's not a recommended practice, but if you're like feeling bad about letting the side down, then I think that your mind can always find a little bit extra.
Let's take a leaf out of David Goggins' book. He ran 3 hell weeks on 2 broken legs and heart issue, sickle cell.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
yeah, if you can do that, anyone can do anything. So,
well, one of the big things on that, mind over legs for me was my first 24-hour race. I was went out too hard, didn't have crew, kind of through the night was just getting slower and slower and slower. And then come the next morning, they hadn't updated the scores since the 11th hour. And come the next morning, I saw that I asked them to update the scores, and I saw that I'd been passed by a walker. And I was like, feeling very embarrassed that I was about 5K behind. And I was like, all right.
Got to do something.
Yeah, so I ran 10K in the last hour. I'm like, I'd already run 170K. And so I was like, if I can run 6-minute Ks at like this shattered, then it's really all about the mind. It's not really about the body so much. So that was a big turning point in my really long running career.
Yeah. And, I, going back to that race I did a few months ago, I had to rely on my mind more than what my body did, and thankfully it got me through.
Well, what else can you say about like what are you up to now? What's your what's another part of your story?
So my second biggest why, and this is pretty much bleeds into what I'm doing now. So I'm 30 years of age, 32 years of age, I should say. My biggest thing is to remain completely independent of someone else's help until I'm at least 90 years of age. So this is why I think it's absolutely vital to add muscle mass, or not so much muscle mass, but more so muscle conditioning. So as you get older, you reduce the chance of muscle pain, aches and pains, immobility potential, sore tendons, sore ligaments, sore muscle bellies, and all that sort of thing. And also is vitally important for cardiovascular training as well, training your heart, because that's another thing as well. It's like heart strength. If you're the lower beats per minute your heart can pump blood, I consider the healthier you are in terms of cardio-wise. And so if I can get my heart rate as low as I possibly can, I mean, my resting heart rate's sitting around about 57 to 58. And when I'm asleep, because I measure my heart rate through my watch, sometimes I sleep with it, sometimes I don't. But on the nights where I've got a few weeks of consistent training, my sleep rate or my sleep heart rate drops down to about 47, 48.
Yeah, right.
So, and when that happens, I feel more recovered. So when I feel more recovered, I can get more done.
Yep.
And so that's why when I'm at home, I can actually do on, I think 2 days, I can do double sessions at the minute. So on my Tuesday, because I fly home on a Monday, on the Tuesday I get my strength session done and I do maybe a 30-minute or 45-minute zone 2 session after that, just to get some of that work in. So right now I do 3 strength days and 3 cardio days, but I aim to hold this cadence, this 6-session-a-week cadence, especially while I'm at home, as long as I possibly can. And if that gets me to my 80s, 90s, where I feel as pain-free as I possibly can, with as good muscle mass as possibly can, and I'm healthy, that's ideally where I want to be. And so that's pretty much my second biggest why. I know, like, it's all more so myself, but, you know, if you look after yourself, you can look after everyone else around you. Because let's say if we have kids or my partner or my other family, they become dependent, I want to be the person that's able to help them.
Yeah.
Like, if they have to, like, if they fall over, like, there's another thing as well, like, you can reduce your chances of falling over dramatically if you just add some muscle mass, especially to your core. And I think that let's say on the off chance that you do fall over, you potentially don't break any hips. But yeah, what about you, mate? What's your second?
Well, yeah, I've kind of talked about why I started. And then, like, I talked a little bit about my journey last week, but just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, kind of where I went from kind of picking prickles out of my foot to running in the Australian 24-hour team and since. But yeah, basically, from there, I actually I kind of really appreciated the need for rest. Even back then, I actually probably skipped a bit. I actually started running in primary school. So I don't know if I shared about it last week, but I'd read all the books in the library about footy and cricket, and I started reading the running books. And one of the things that I read that really appealed to me, I read about Derek Clayton. He's a former world record holder in the marathon, an Australian guy, still one of the fastest Australian marathoners ever. And he, I think he ran his world record in 69. So he is well ahead of his time, still being, I think, about the 5th fastest Australian at the moment ever. And one of the things he was into his team sports, and then he just decided to get into running, and within a short period of time found himself like the 5th best 5K runner in Australia. And he's like, well, this is the sort of sport that I need, something that I can just achieve success through hard work. I'm not relying on my talent in cricket and footy. And so that really appealed to me. So I just like, all right, well, I gotta start early. I gotta like start training early. So yeah, year 7, I started running 1K once a day, built up to running 8K twice a day.
Wow.
So yeah, I got about 1,000K in the first 6 months of like year 7. Then started getting injuries, and winter hit. Days started getting very short, cold. So kind of faded away, but I kind of built like a pretty good base there. But from then, like as an adult, like I really appreciated the need for rest. So I had a pretty good idea. I always used to take Sundays off. I used to train 6 days a week in year 7. So I appreciated that need for a rest cycle. But so what I actually started doing was I started on a bit of a triathlon thing. I'd do swim, bike, run, and then rest. So I had a 4-day cycle. Yep. And I did that for a few weeks. And then I just discovered that, the rides and the swims were a bit like, how's it going? And just ended up, just getting into running. One of my mates had also taken up running as well, South African guy.
Okay.
And he kind of encouraged me as well. Initially it was like road running, and then the triathlons, umpiring where I met yourself.
Yeah.
And then like New Zealand was a really big thing for me. I travelled over there, and
beautiful trails over there, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'd gone over like thinking I'll take my bike, and I'll cycle around a heap. And then like one of my friends from the tri club's like, no, don't do that. That'll like just be such a hassle. Just run. It's so beautiful over there. And so that's what I did, and that kind of got the triathlon out of my system. I just became this like running machine. So
it's what speaks to your soul, I reckon.
Yeah, I've always loved, I talked about it a bit last week with the 6-inch trail marathon. I've always loved trail running, but it wasn't really a thing. Like there wasn't really events over here. Then from starting 6-inch, I talked about that. Like I got into ultra running and read about 24-hour races, and I was like, I can run 200K in 24 hours. I'm fairly confident. Like I don't know why, like I was so confident I could do that, but for some reason I thought, that number seems manageable. I can do that. It's kind of interesting because that was the qualifier for the Australian team at the time. Like sort of when I first read about it, 2005. I did that first race where I kind of got overtaken by the walker.
Yeah.
And then like discovered like, I can pull like 10K out in an hour even when I'm exhausted, if my mind's there and in the game, and motivated. And then I developed a bit of an Achilles problem from that race.
Yeah.
about 6 or 7 weeks later, I was running a 100-mile race in WA. Like there's like 3 of us at most.
You know, when we talk about like 200 milers, 100 milers, 100K, 200K, 50Ks, we blow so many people's minds with that distance. Because I talk to people at work about it, and they're like, because I had an event planned for November, what are you doing? And they said, oh, I could never do that. I'm like, well, I'm sure you can eventually. You just got to put some training towards it. So like you blow so many people's minds with the distances that you run, and there's so many other people that run that as well. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's where we get the idea for the WTF, I guess. Like it's like,
are you sure WTF doesn't stand for anything else?
Well, like it's obviously like it's water, trail and foot, but like it's the concept that like, you know, what the heck are you up to, like running 100 miles through the bush?
It's like that urban meaning.
Yeah. So and I did this. So I had this 100-mile plan. It was about 6 or 7 weeks after the first 24-hour race, and the Achilles was still kind of aggravating me. So I actually cut a section out of the back of my shoe, which seemed to make it go away.
Yeah, right.
And ended up running really well at this 100-mile race with the heel cut out of the back of my shoe, just a small bit, just so it wasn't pushing on my Achilles. And yeah, I kind of learnt my lesson there from overly aggressive pacing. I went out nice and casually, ran with a friend who was much slower for the first 30K or so, and then kind of kicked it down from there and ended up running a fairly even split. And that pretty much changed the way I race. And then from
so you pretty much talked to mental resilience, pretty much, like just like with the Achilles and everything else you spoke about. It's just like, I mean, you spoke about it before about the mindset. Like if you've got the physical ability or even a mental ability, you'll be able to do anything.
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where the mind is more important than the body, and it's probably after 100K. I think up to 100K, like, yeah, your fitness is really important, but once it gets longer than 100K, like even from 12 hours plus, it's more of a mind game than a physical game. Obviously, it's good to be fit. You don't want to go in unfit, but like, yeah, I kind of probably talk about it a bit later on, but it's kind of 30K a week fit is nowhere near as fit as 100K a week fit, but you can still do a lot with 30K a week fit if your mind's in the right spot.
Exactly.
So what about you, Wattsie? What else have you? What else would you like to share about your why and how story?
So my third why kind of resonates why, or pretty much speaks to why I got into fitness and even powerlifting. I just wanted to be as strong as I can be. Being a male with high or relatively high testosterone levels, I always had this thing that I wanted a really big squat, big bench press, big deadlift, and to look relatively not so much jacked, but just have like a heap of muscle mass on me. And so I worked towards all big lifts, and I got there. And then again, I found running. I kind of went back into the running side of things, and I found that I lost a lot of strength going back to running.
Yep.
But going through what I went through over the last few years, I've found that balance. I found that balance between cardio training and strength training, and my third why is to get as strong as I possibly can. To like say, if I can put 170, 180 kilos on the bar, upwards of 200 on the bar eventually, like I was working well towards that, and I was progressing well towards that. I was actually progressing towards over 200 kilo squat eventually at about 104 kilo body weight, and I got over 200 kilos for my deadlift. I got 205. But I think I just want to keep working to get stronger and stronger and stronger. But I understand that there's going to be a point where your potential will slow right down. And so in a few years, after trying to get as strong as I possibly can, I could potentially add on 5, 10, 15% total strength over the year in my first few years. But after a few years after that, your return starts to diminish. So like I know powerlifters who trained and competed for about 5 years just to put 2.5 kilos on their total.
Yeah.
And so the total is your biggest bench, biggest squat, biggest deadlift. They would train for up to 5 years, even longer, just to put 2.5 kilos on my total. And so doing what I'm doing now, I'm eventually going to surpass my previous powerlifting strength with the addition of cardiovascular training. And so that's pretty much my third why. It's just continue to get as strong as I can, get as fit as I can, and just be a much better human being than what I am like every single day. It's like if I can wake up, I open up my eyes, if I got a heartbeat, I've got 2 feet, heartbeat, what my mum used to always say, and I can have air in my lungs, I can do anything. I can get up, I can do some training, I can do something. The only days I don't train is when I fly to work, but I feel a little bit disappointed about that, but doesn't matter. So that is my third why. But also another one that's kind of off topic, not so much off topic, but it's more so trying to set an example to not directly, but it's like just to try and just set an overall example for the people that I spend time with, just to be in a good health condition. Like, so people might see, like, you see someone fit or see someone putting in some work. I kind of want to be that role model, if you know what I mean. Like, I sort of want to let people know that you can do these things. You can work to you can improve yourself, so you can get to a point where you're the best version of yourself, sort of thing. And that's pretty much my 3 whys. Is like to look after my heart, have plenty of muscle mass when I'm 90, reduce the risk of injury, illnesses and all that sort of stuff, and to be as strong as I can, be as fit as I can, and just be an overall better person for myself. And that speaks strongly. That speaks more strongly to me than training for something. I mean, 10 years ago, you could ask me, I can't go to the gym if I'm not training for something. Fast forward 10 years, I'm giving you a completely different explanation. I'm giving you a completely different reason as to why I train. And the reason why I train is, again, to look after my body, to look after my mind, and just to be the best human I possibly can be while I'm on this earth.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I've noticed myself, like my reasons for training have changed over the years. So like drinking's not an issue anymore, so I don't run for that reason. But I went through my ultra running career, and I kind of felt like I'd achieved most of what I wanted to achieve. Not that I kind of sat down with a goal like at the beginning. It's like, I want to achieve all these things. Just you achieve something, and then you'll like map out what you want to achieve next, find another goal. And so I'd kind of run out of goals, but I really got into running with my daughter. So I started running with Hannah, my eldest daughter, when she was about 7 or 8, and we started off a couple of days a week, just 3 or 4K, or sometimes like shorter than that as well. We ended up just following kind of a Lydiard system, training for cross country, and she got right into her park runs, and and started just to get really, really good at it. So that was quite inspiring, and quite a fun way to stay involved with the sport, but not be focusing on my own performance, but just helping her along. I spent a few years where kind of the ultra running, I did a 200-mile race, which was kind of at the time was meant to be like, the kind of crown on the end of my ultra career. I'd kind of lost interest, had a few injuries the year before, and then kind of came back 2017 with like a real zeal to train and train hard and get really fit. And I did my 200-miler and developed a bit of an injury. And then just kind of put my focus on training my daughter up, and she ended up running a couple of national cross countries, which was pretty cool, making the state team a couple of times.
Yeah, from what I remember, she's very competitive. And just just on that, I mean, I'm just trying to give a bit of context to the audience as well. It's like people get to a certain age, like myself, and I think that's it. It's all done. I'm too old. I mean, I get to that point at about 30, 32. Even sometimes I'm still at that point now. It's like, I'm 30 odd years of age and there's nothing left for me anymore. And when in actual fact, there's another 50, 60, 70 years left for you. So when you were doing all this stuff, back in 2017, 18, what age were we talking there? Just for the audience.
Oh, yeah, so it was 39, 40.
39, 40,
yeah. So I did most of my best times at about 32, 33. So about your age. I did, I think I did. I did my half marathon PB a bit early, but I should have improved on it. I had it in the bag. What was that, 2012? So, it would have been about 34. I should have beaten my PB, but I had a loss of concentration with 5K to go. I was on pace. I was 25 seconds below pace, and then I was like, I got this in the bag. Literally that mental thought, I've got this in the bag.
Absolutely.
Next K split was like 20 seconds slower, and I was like, oh no, I'm really close now. And so I picked it up again, smashed the last 4K, missed it by 8 seconds. But every other one I ran around about the same time as my 24-hour PB, which was age 33. Came back from that and ran 1,500 PB, 10K PB. My best ever 5K, which was on a pretty hard course, which would have been worth probably close to a minute. I ran sub 17, but the course was very, very slow. And then 1,500 PB and 800 PB. So I think that pretty much covers the distances.
Yeah.
And so I did my 100K. I started concentrating on that a few years later when I'd kind of got a little bit, I'd stopped making the 24-hour team. That was part of it. But I'd also kind of exhausted my mental capacity for 24-hour races a bit. Yeah, for sure. They were saying when you do these ultra events, the average peak age is in the 40s. Yeah. So if there's someone out there at 25, 30, 35 years of age wanting to get into running or strength training or doing whatever they want to do and just to have a bit of a, improve their life a bit, you've still got a full decade, 15 years left. That's not even left. I shouldn't have even said that word, but you've got so much more time than you think. And it's like, that's what buoys me to continue to do what I do. And it's like, I'm only going to get stronger. I'm probably going to be within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it might be, I'm probably going to be in the best physical shape I've ever been in. I'm going to be able to lift as heavy as I've ever done, and I'll be able to run races further than I've ever ran. So that's a big confidence boost. What you're talking about as well. It's like 30 is still young, so it's 30 or 40 is still young, so you can still it's just up and up from there, I reckon. Yeah, well, I think of the two 24-hour world champs I did, the winners were 40, 41. There you go. So, I wanted to ask what you're up to at the moment. You've touched on it a little bit, but what are you working towards at the moment? So, my main thing is to try and cure this foot. I've been to the physios. I've been to a couple of physios, and they give me some things to do. Get some massages, strap it up, take a few other bits and pieces and do exercises and whatnot. So it's probably going to take a few more months for my tendon to calm down. But I've been kind of interested by what you said, I think last week, about the enduro races. I think you're going to, at the time of this recording, I think you're going to race one this afternoon. And then you also mentioned the Dwelling Up 100 on the bike. And I did a bit of YouTubing about that race, and I thought, that actually looks pretty interesting. That actually, it's not like turn a hill. There's not like a heap of jumps around the place. It's more like cross country type riding. And for 100 Ks, you could get it done in about 7 to 8 hours or something around there. Even less if you're fit like yourself. But
I would actually be quite keen on seeing what I can do to get myself in a position where I can start racing bikes. And I guess with my foot, because my ideal sport is running, I want to run. That's all I want to do. This strength stuff is to pretty much support my running. But what I've noticed is over the last couple of months, whilst being injured, I'm starting to enjoy my time on the bike.
Yep.
So I'm spending a lot more time on the bike. I'm starting to do more efforts. When I first got on the bike, it was boring as anything. I didn't want to say, wow, I can't believe this. And every time that my foot would be okay, it wouldn't be as aggravated, I'd think to myself, I can go run down a trail. I can get on a treadmill and do a few Ks. Nah, because it'll piss it off even more. And it got to a point where it's like, no, you're not doing anything. And it even got to a point where it'll hurt to walk. And so my goal is at the moment is to try and get my foot under control, start and to further develop my interest in cycling a bit more, or especially MTB. I'm a bit open to everything at the moment. And also I'm going through a training block at the minute. I've just hit my final high volume block, which at the moment, again, because I'm self-coached at the minute, at the moment my deadlifts in particular are about lifting over 80% of my estimated 1 rep max, and I did it for about 16 reps, so 4 sets of 4. And I'm feeling a little bit knackered from that because deadlifts are the movement which challenges the body the most. And I'm now thinking about how am I going to move forward in my training direction. But I've still got my eye on repeating my Party Ultra 25K. I know it's going to be a long road back, but considering I'm only 32, you still got years and years and years ahead of me. And yeah, just if I can get to a point where I'm lifting as strong as I can by that point, that's pretty much all I've got. But with this foot, I don't want to push the envelope as fast as I ideally want to, because, the body takes time to heal, the body takes time to recover. And so once I've at a point where I'm recovering well and my foot's okay, then, in conjunction with my physio, we might be able to start loading it up, going for runs and stuff like that. But at the moment, it's just cruising. There's not much. There's pretty much nothing on the docket yet. But what about you, man? What are you training for? Because
Well, yeah, I've actually since my 200 miler, I've kind of just kind of gone where the passion has led. So I was injured after the 200 miler, so I got on the bike and basically did a year of cycling, did a few races, did a couple of Tour of Margaret Rivers, I've done a lot of triathlons like in the years when I was in my early 20s or mid 20s. Never any long stuff though, but I've done a lot of cycling over the years. So this year I decided I wanted to get fit again. I actually I noticed with the marking of the course for the 6-inch, I go out on the mountain bike these days. I used to do it on foot, but 3 rides to mark the course, couple of hours each time. I noticed that I was significantly fitter than after the race than I was before the race, and so I was like, it's really actually nice feeling that kind of boost of fitness. So that kind of got me motivated to get properly fit again. So I've been struggling with injuries, especially last year was calves. I did my calf 3 times. And so I was like, I'm just going to jump back on the bike because I can get fit quickly on the bike and not really risk injury. So I started cycling and, as you do, kind of looked at the calendar and I was like, what's on the calendar? And I saw this race, the Mundabiddi Ultra, Mundabiddi Sprint it was. They have 2 events. And the Mundabiddi Ultra is the whole length of the tracks, 1,100K, and the Mundabiddi Sprint is just from Perth to Collie, so just a
sprint.
A 330K sprint.
A sprint.
So I was like, well, that sounds like something I could work towards. So it was only about 6 weeks away as well, which kind of made it interesting. I looked at the date and then I realised I actually booked myself in to preach at a church out in the country on the day of the race. So I was like, well, I might just start 24 hours early. So Yeah, they started the race on the Saturday morning. I started on the Friday morning, and jumped on my bike and rode to Dwellingup on the Mundabiddi. It's about 180k, and I'd had issues with my lights, so I was not confident I could get through to Collie, and I had enough light power to make it through the night. So,
yep.
I was like, I'm just gonna take a detour, follow the river to the Bilberman track, take the Bilberman out to the road that leads to my mum's place, and so that would, ended up cutting it down 290k, 22 hours, and that was kind of the funnest adventure I've done this year. It's kind of crazy that I managed to ride that really well after 6 weeks training. I'd done like 3 50k weeks on the bike, just deflagging 6-inch, and plus like one wasn't really like a training ride so much as like Saturday morning, what am I going to do? I think I'll go for a mountain bike ride, and then got me thinking. I ended up on my Ironman course a few years ago. It's one of the other little things little challenges I'd run into. I was like, I've always the actual original idea for WTF wasn't a 100-mile race. It was actually water, tyres, feet.
Oh wow!
An off-road Ironman. I'd never heard of anybody doing one, and I still haven't. So
it's up to you now, mate, because I want to do something like that.
Yeah, so I had a crack at it back at January 2021, and did my swim in Waroona Dam. Did mountain bike around the Waterous Loop, and then started the run, and ended up only making it just past halfway on the run. So that's something that I'd still like to have another crack at.
I've been looking for something like that. The wheels, water tyres, feet.
Water tyres, feet. Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I was interested in a Margaret River. Was it Dwellingup? No, it wasn't Dwellingup. Where was it? Down in Dunsborough, I think it was. It was a Xterra. Xterra race.
Yeah, Dunsborough one. Yeah.
But I'm maybe you should be a race director of one, and actually like an actual WTF race.
Yeah, I've looked into. Yeah, but I tried to get a few people to come and join me. There wasn't a lot of interest. I guess it's something that's kind of out there on the extreme, like when you haven't heard of anybody else doing it. But it's something I'd like to just do, because I had that idea in 2009, and I was like, I think I told a few people, I'm like, you can't do 180k mountain bike in a day, and I was like, well,
of course you can.
Yeah, I think you can. Well, I've done it a couple of times. So
why don't you create like an unofficial race? Like get like 3 or 4 people, and it'll just grow, and then it'll turn into an official race.
Well, yeah, that's basically what I did, but only two of us did. I attempted the full, and my mate did half. He went water skiing while I was finishing off the mountain bike, and
lovely.
I had a bunch of friends join me on the run. But yeah, I mean that's one of the other sporadic challenges. So I had a list of 4 things that I wanted to do when I decided to get fit back in like February, March, and one of them was to have another crack at the off-road Ironman. One of them was that Mundabiddi Sprint.
Yep.
One of them is the Dwellingup 100, which is coming up in about 5 weeks, the mountain bike race.
Yep.
And the fourth one was the Bustleton Ironman. So yeah, that's in December.
I've actually got one of my mates doing that. One of our mates.
Yeah, right.
We're actually catching up with him, I think, today. So we'll have a chat to him about it. But yeah, he's doing the same thing. It's quite popular. It's about 1,000 people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big international event. When it first came to WA, probably early 2000s, I was like, I will eventually do that one day, and one day hasn't arrived yet. So I figured that while I'm back on the bike and I'm running and surfing a fair bit, and I started swimming again, I figure now is probably as good a time as any to give that a crack.
Absolutely.
What about yourself, Wattsie? Have you got? I've got a couple of questions that
Yeah, for sure. Fire away.
Do you want to tell us just a little bit about your heart health?
Yeah, so I'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Now, When you listen to it, it seems a bit aggressive. It seems a bit, oh my God, it seems a bit scary. I've actually got a bicuspid aortic valve, which is a valve that pumps blood around the body, and I've got a bit of a dilation of the aorta as well. So there's a bit of expansion there. So which means as that expands over time, it can actually pull the valve open apart a little bit, and it opens up that regurgitation because I get a little bit of flow back through the valve. And I seen my doctor back in February, and when I seen him initially, which was in July 2023, he said, "Look, I got to talk to your the initial, like the Rockingham doctor, which where I initially got my test done. You got to got to pull those records up, and I got to compare what's going on." So from July, he said, "I can see you in February." I said, "Okay." I was nervous as anything for those 6 months. I was a bit of a wreck. I was always Googling things, as I was saying. But when I went to see him that next time in February, he pretty much told me that there's nothing that had been changed since I was 17.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, absolutely. And he goes, "Just keep doing what you're doing." I said, "I will be." And so he was saying that there's only really one option for you, which is open heart.
Yeah.
So I've got to get cut open and open up my chest and whatnot. And then there's going to be either two options there as well. There's either going to be the Ross procedure, which is I think they take your pulmonary valve and replace it, and they takes another tissue from somewhere else. Well, I think they put one in there, like a biological or bovine one in there.
Yep.
In replace for that one. So your pulmonary valve goes to your aorta valve, and there's another one that they use to go into your pulmonary valve. But because you've got your biological valves, they don't last as long. I think about 16 years or something. They don't last very long. But they said the most likely procedure for you is going to be a mechanical valve.
Okay.
So they'll open me up, they'll replace the mechanical valve, they'll put the mechanical valve in, stitch me back up, boot me out the door. I've got to spend a week in ICU or however, depending how fit I am. And then I'll recover, and there's 6 to 12 week recovery from that point. 6 weeks I can start doing my normal stuff, but 12 weeks I should make a full recovery. So that's assuming if I'm the average person. I mean, a lot of these medical diagnoses and a lot of these, what they base their decisions on is down to the average person.
Yeah. And
if I can get my heart rate as low as I can, that means I can sort of preserve my valve health over the years. Yep. And so the next time I'm doing yearly checkups with him. And so every time that I go and see him, hopefully he'll say, all right, 12 months, 12 months, 12 months, 12 months. So it could be either 10 or 15 years, or it depends how I look after it. It could be 30 years. Who knows? But, who knows what the medical industry is going to be or how advanced it's going to be, whether it's, we use AI or robots or whatever. We might come up with a completely new technology. I mean, have you heard about that guy that got the first full titanium heart transplant?
Okay.
A couple of months ago.
No.
Because there's only one moving part in it.
Yeah, wow.
And it acts under its own propulsion.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how it works, but the first thing this guy said was, "I want a soda." After he got that titanium heart in there. And when they got him up to do his walks and stuff, he was walking rather aggressively.
Yeah, wow.
So it just goes to show like the advancements in medical health. And so I hope that they'll create a valve to go in my aorta within 10, 15 years or hopefully longer. And I'll be able to, it'll be as common and even, it'll be successful as that. But as of right now, my doctor said there's a 1 to 2% chance that something could go wrong, but it's an acceptable risk. I said, okay, cool. So as you can imagine, that's kind of spooked me for a period of time. But as I go on, I always think about it, and it kind of doubles down my intentions onto becoming stronger, looking after my heart health. And so looking after what I eat, like I still eat relatively okay. Like I'm mindful of what goes into my body. But that's pretty much my heart health. That's pretty much why. And, it's quite nervous.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can put it off for as long as possible, hey? And, be fit enough that when you do get it done, that it's a really quick recovery for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just probably my last why on my list is just well-being.
Yep.
So it's been an interesting kind of journey going from like just wanting to stop drinking to like getting into the whole competitive nature of running as a sport through road running, triathlon, umpiring, trail running, ultra running, and then into cycling, and then running with my daughter, that being a huge focus, and then for the last, pretty much since end of 2017, like I've just had sporadic challenges, so I just kind of keep fit, mainly just for my well-being. Like I enjoy the routine of we'll talk about routine in our next episode, but yeah, just really enjoy the routine of going for a run. I feel better during the day. So, and then if I've got a reasonable base, then if I see something that excites me, like the Mundabiddi Sprint or an off-road Ironman, one of the things that actually I didn't mention was, in August 2021, I decided I'd have a crack at another 24-hour race. I hadn't done one for 5 years.
How's that
6
going?
years. 6 years. So I put about 10 weeks training into it.
Yeah.
And the goal was like, I'd read not long after I got into ultra running, I'd read about a guy who would kind of, he wanted to be a sub 3 hour marathon runner. He never quite got there. And then he found 24-hour races and kind of trained hard for them for years. And then he kind of stopped really training, but he'd still rock up and do this 24-hour race every year and do quite well. And so I was like, I want to kind of try that. And the goal was like, my PB was 230, just under 237K.
Yeah.
But I'd always like 200 was kind of the benchmark. So I was like, can I kind of basically go from couch to 200K?
Well, they say the biggest thing is just showing up.
Yeah. And like I had 10 weeks training. I probably probably averaged about 60K a week. So I wasn't doing big mileage. Like I did 2 50K training runs. And
250K training runs.
Maybe a couple of 30s, maybe more. I probably should have had a look at my program. So, so it's basically just trying to do a long run on the weekend and between 20 and 50, depending on where I was in my build. And then during the week, just running half an hour, like 5 or 6 days, I was at least having one rest day. So probably 4 or 5 days of half an hour. So that was basically all I did. Seemed to go okay. I ended up running 202 and I got a sneaky win as well. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of the sporadic challenges, but like day to day, it's just like, I enjoy getting up in the morning, doing some exercise and then feel better, and sleep better. And I'll talk about all that in our next episode.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to end it, I reckon. We managed to cover a whole heap of different points. Have you got anything else, Dave? Or
no, I think let's wrap it up and we'll catch everybody next week.
Yeah, for sure. We just thanks guys for listening. We've noticed some good traction happening on our first episode. We really do appreciate it. So we've just created Instagram pages. We'll link them in the show notes somehow. But yeah, like, subscribe, do all that bit, and tell your mum. And we'll see you all in the next episode.